In our opinion, Skyward Sword has some of the best dungeons out of any Zelda game.
In fact, Hick had 3 of these dungeons in his top 10 overall, and I had 2.
Now, even though these dungeons only take place in 3 areas, all are very distinct with different looks and different mechanics.
These dungeons are going to take us from the forest to the desert, even to the heart of a volcano.
This is 2 guys playing Zelda Skyward Sword Dungeon Ranking.
Coming in at number 7 on our countdown is the Skyview Temple, and as far as last ranked dungeons go, this is actually a pretty good dungeon. It just kind of suffers from the same fate that a lot of opening dungeons do. That's a fact that it's just a little bland.
There's really not much to it, really, in other sense, but you do end up getting an awesome weapon in this game, which I really love, and I also really like this part right here, just the water. For some reason, it just seemed beautiful in this dungeon.
It does. Plus, I love the contrast from that opening area where you're in the dark and
it's
the
kind
water.
of like a blue dark, dark blue.
To when you get into like the actual sky view area where it's just that bright gold.
Yeah, you see that sun coming down on top of you.
It's just such a switch from the dark to the light. And it really shows off like this is what we're going to be expecting throughout the rest of the game. These beautiful dungeons.
As we said earlier, like the beetle, just the way that it was used in this dungeon throughout the rest of the game just made this dungeon, like, even though we have it last, it was still very fun.
I think that beetle is one of the best and most unique items I've ever seen in any Zelda game, as a matter of fact.
I love that last room we were in too right there with the whole, like, you can see down the depths and everything.
Yep. Now, fighting Girahim, we have to deal with him several times throughout the game. I mean, I guess this was unique at the time because it was the first one.
Yeah.
But man, it kind of gets a little old fighting.
Yeah, I really just didn't like it. Now, Skykeep, while we have it at number 6, I also think this was a great dungeon, like every single dungeon in this ranking.
Yeah.
But I really like that this brought together everything really from the other dungeons that we played in the game.
Yeah, every single room that we will go into in this dungeon has a bit of a throwback or a theme taken from one of the previous dungeons. And as this is the last dungeon in the game, I thought it was a nice little a way to bring it all together.
Yeah, it usually does happen in the last dungeon, but I don't know, the puzzle thing, I thought when I first saw it I would really like it, but I don't know, it really got complicated and confusing as it went on.
It did, and it was a great new mechanic, I mean, in theory.
Yeah,
because in times we flipped dungeons, we flipped rooms, things like that. I don't think we've ever had a dungeon where we have to move every
rooms.
single room around. And like you said, by the time you're done, it just got a little tedious, though.
Now, I did like the theme of this place because it made it feel like it's actually a sacred place.
It does. But I will say, though, for this being like a sacred place and you're actually collecting the Triforce in this dungeon, I feel like it was almost anticlimactic when you get the pieces of the Triforce. It didn't feel epic enough.
Yeah, it really didn't feel like you really accomplished anything, to be honest with you. I mean, like, you got the pieces and then, like, you just went outside and you're ready to fight the final boss.
Yeah, just not the best. Number 5 on our countdown is the Earth Temple, and let me just start by saying I think the Wii really was able to show off the lava effects and the fire effects in this dungeon.
Kind of also the art style of Skyward Sword was able to show off. It just looked brighter in this game than it did like in Twilight Princess.
It really was. Plus, introducing the mechanic of like rolling around on those giant like boulders.
Oh, I love that because that was something we had never done in a Zelda game.
It's very well implemented, especially in a few of the rooms where you just like it's just lava falling off the sides. I mean, it just looks.
And you spent a lot of time on that ball, and then right here, just rolling through this area was just absolutely amazing.
And like seeing the waterfalls of lava off the sides.
Yes,
just looked great.
And then right here, where you first really get to use the sprint, and then seeing those balls roll down at you, and then also right here, giant rocks.
It's like Indiana Jones' Temple of Doom.
Yes,
right?
kind of. And then also, I was a really big fan of the boss. Kind of took you back to King Dodongo.
Yep.
In Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. I just thought it looked really good. Like every bomb you hit him with blows off these chunks of his armor to expose his weak spot, his eye, obviously. Just really looked great.
And one of my favorite things was just watching him like roll all the way back down this like little path right here.
It's almost like a skeleton you're fighting him.
Yeah, kind of is. In at number 4, we also have another fire dungeon, but one of the main things I really liked about this dungeon was the whole outside area.
Yes, just the contrast of like from going inside and underground and everything to when you get out into like the center of the volcano and you're out in the open. It just looks so gorgeous.
And it really didn't feel like a big dungeon, but like this cinematic right here, it made it feel more vast, even though I guess it really wasn't, in my opinion.
It made it feel very sprawling.
Yes, and we go outside in some of our fire dungeons, but this one, I mean, it felt like you were outside more. and we're both a big fan of that.
Yep, you think most fire dungeons are like you're underground or you're in a volcano. This one, which you're in a volcano, obviously, beginning to go outside and see the sky and see how it's kind of how the whole dungeon ties together when you're in this big open area. It just looks really great.
It kind of actually feels a little bit like a sanctuary, not like a small sanctuary, but
No.
an epic sanctuary.
It does. Plus, I love the concept. Another new mechanic introduced for Zelda games is being able to go underground.
Yeah, and dig underground.
Like
and this whole
this.
lava right here, like the whole, and that over at the flying. The flying right there was one of my favorite parts in the whole game.
One of the few downsides of the dungeon was you do have to fight Gear-Him for the second time.
Yeah.
A little easier now that you're more used to the motion controls, I thought, in my opinion. But still, it kind of got a little old fighting him again. Now we're getting to the cream of the crop.
Yep, top
the
three, baby.
Three. Number 3 is the Lanayru mining facility, and even though this is only the 3rd dungeon in the game, I cannot remember like an opening dungeon that impressed me more than Lanayru mining facility.
Yeah, it was just so cool. Like it had this really bland, just sand and nothing else to it. And then you had these time shift stones. It brings this whole place to life.
And the funny thing is, even though the time shift stones take you back in time, it makes it look so futuristic. Like you're in a factory basically with all these machines and robot enemies.
And the color it brought back was amazing too.
Just going from the desert to that color, you're absolutely right.
I remember we got the gust bell. I was like, this is going to be the stupidest item we've ever gotten before. And they really used it very well in this dungeon.
I thought they found, not only in this dungeon, we used it a little bit later in the game as well, but I feel like they did a good job of incorporating an item, which I agree with you, I thought was going to be kind of stupid. But man, this boss just looks epic.
Yeah, I love fighting Scorpion. It's just huge Scorpion. It was really epic. It was kind of an easier boss, but I really like the way that it used the motion controls, especially on his hand.
Plus, and you gotta love it.
Those aren't really hands, but it's claws. And this helped using the gust bell right there too. I mean, like I said, the gust bell is used very well. Now, I absolutely love the Ancient Cistern, and in most games it probably would have been number 1.
Any other game.
Any other game, but yeah, it was a very good place. And one of the main things I like about this place is the upstairs is so beautiful, but then later on we'll get this whole contrasting area, which is kind of like a heaven versus hell thing.
But going back to what you said about the upstairs area being beautiful,
oh yeah,
I can't think of a more gorgeous area of any dungeon of any Zelda game.
What's the first thing you think when you get in here? Oh crap, another water dungeon. And it's kind of like a hybrid water dungeon, but it was really, the water just made this place, like the upstairs specifically, just appear more beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, just getting in there with the gold colors, these beautiful statues, especially that center statue, the water and the lily pads and everything. It was just a breathtaking sight to see. And then, like you said, when you go down into the basement area and how contrasting it is, just a very good night and day.
And then how about this boss right here, Galactus? One of the best fights, in my opinion, in any Zelda game.
Dude, he'll be up there.
Yeah, just amazing, with just this whole, the theme that goes on during this, and just a whole six swords, and then you get to use the big one, just awesome.
Just an epic feeling boss fight. And of course, what else could be number 1 than the Sandship? Is there anything better in a Zelda game than fighting on a pirate ship?
No, there's not. I just love the whole build-up to this place, too. Just the whole desert area and the whole sand sea. I was excited before I even got here, and it came through.
And then especially you get to this mini-boss, which I think is one of the funnest fights in the game.
It really was fun.
On the very bow of the ship was great.
And then we also get the bow and arrow, which is one of the best weapons in any Zelda game.
And using it to hit that time crystal that brings just the entire ship and the ocean around to life. Just a great visual seeing that. Unlike the Lanayru, which only brought little chunks to life, it brought the entire ship to life.
I love the whole part going to the top of the sand ship too. Yeah. Having those I guess the rails or whatever they were. Pull you up there.
And just plus this dungeon also has some of that indoor-outdoor. You've heard us mention it a few times before, but fighting both below decks and then up on top of the ship was amazing.
Yeah, I love the build-up right here to fight the boss. How it's kind of like the ship is sinking. Yeah. And you gotta make your way up to him.
And he's kind of a little bit of a ridiculous-looking boss, but he is tough.
He's very fun, He's
fun, he's tough, and he's huge.
Very good epic feel to him, really, in my opinion.
It feels like a good climactic...
They didn't like snakes, though. They didn't like snakes.
But it's appropriately epic boss for one of the best dungeons in the game.
And then you can see right here, individual rankings, and we were actually very close. We only had 3 and 4 switched, and 5 and 6 switched.
But overall, we were just hands down agreed that these were some of the best dungeons in any Zelda game.
Yes, and this was 2 guys playing Zelda, Skyward Sword, dungeon ranking.